Now moving on, the jobs market in the UK is showing signs of weakness as unemployment has risen once again to 5% in the 3 months to September, and that's the highest level in over 4.5 years. In fact, since the grim old days of COVID lockdowns. Well, wage growth has also slowed, adding further pressure on workers across the country. Let's now speak with our political commentator and independent statistician, Jamie Jenkins. Jamie, welcome to the show. You sent this through to me this morning and straight away you said terrible news for the Chancellor. Tell us more.
Yeah, good afternoon, Martin. So this is clearly not the news the Chancellor wants ahead of a budget. So if we break down what happened then, if we look at before the general election last year, what we've seen is that 170,000 people have come off the payroll. So that's the most robust way of looking at kind of the jobs market, looking at the payroll rather than looking at some surveys. So 170,000. And the most damning part of that is when you break it down by different age groups in different regions, you can see that we've seen 220,000 losses among people under 35. So it's young people really being affected here. You look across the country, where I live in Wales and London, where you were broadcasting from, they've had the biggest kind of percentage job cuts over the last 18 months. And most interesting, when you really break down very granular, Westminster has actually had the biggest percentage job cut. So when you look at these figures, maybe we could do with a couple of cuts from the Chancellor and the Prime Minister ahead of in the future.
On a serious point, November the 26th is a date that many have as a black cross in their diaries now, surely no more so than the Chancellor. Wiggle room is running out whichever way she looks.
Yeah, and one of the things I was looking at last week is what's that wiggle room that she's got, because the OBR will update their forecasts. And if we go back to, say, before the general election, when the OBR did their pre-election forecast last March in 2024, they were forecasting, it's still a staggering amount of money, Martin, £102 billion, 102.6 to be precise, borrowing from August to September under Rachel Reeves. But they've had to revise that. And what we've seen, actually, the figures that they've actually borrowed was 194.4 billion. So the Chancellor has borrowed 92 billion more than what the OBR were predicting before the election. Now, that's far more than this mysterious black hole she says she inherits from the kind of the Conservative Party. And that's where the wiggle room's not there. But the difficulty you've got, Martin, is if you put income taxes up or taxes on jobs, and the tax on jobs is a factor in why we're seeing these really poor figures on the employment stats today. When you've got 180,000 people on payroll, that's less tax coming in, more money has to be spent on benefits. So putting the tax up and up and up is actually not working, but she's not going to do a U-turn because she's kind of entrenched in what you got on. And the graphic on the screen, you can see there is basically, for those listening on the radio, it's just showing basically blobs and blobs of red negative since the election. Jobs were actually going up before the general election, and they've come down quite significantly since.
Yeah, only 15 days to go, Jamie Jenkins. I think a lot of people will be looking through their fingers at their diaries, waiting for, bracing for impact. November the 26th, the day. Jamie Jenkins, thank you as ever for making the difficult stuff easy to understand. Always a pleasure.